Hi, everybody. We're talking about Deadpool today. Wait, what? Not doing Deadpool? Talking about Harry Potter? Harry fucking Potter? Seriously? It's bullshit. I'm a much better character than Harry Potter. In Harry Potter, we usually get a decent perspective of what wizarding is like in the UK and in some of the other countries and continents around the world, specifically more so through the Goblet of Fire, which has several other schools participating in an event held at Hogwarts, basically going through a bunch of dangerous trials to find out which school is the better school, I guess. But there's one school that does not participate in this at all, that we never hear about in the books or in the movies or anything else, and that is Ilvermorny, the American school for witchcraft and wizardry that is in Massachusetts and has been around for a while at this point. Nowhere near as long as Hogwarts, but it still has a lot of history that I find really fun and fascinating. Specifically, I much prefer their house sorting to Hogwarts because it's much more interesting, and I'll just tell you about it in a moment. Our tale begins with a young girl being born in around 1600 something named Isolde. I think it was 1600s. I don't know. She was born sometime before, before present day, obviously. Anyway, her name was Isolde, and she was born to two wizarding parents who were purebloods and almost directly related to Slytherin, Salazar Slytherin, the one and only. But their family sort of went against the pureblood, nature by, helping muggles and associating with muggleborns and, stuff like that. Like they would cure muggles when they got sick. Everything. I have hair sticking up. That's better. Anyway, along with the show, eventually these people die. The parents die, leaving only the daughter, and she is taken by her grandmother, who is basically, her last name is Gaunt, which if you read the books, you know why that's important. And she is also directly related to Slytherin as well, and she took her niece because she felt that her sister was poisoning her niece with these values of Muggle lives matter, when in her opinion Muggles were worthless, evil monsters, and it should be only purebloods, and we need to make wizarding great again because Muggles are bad and they're below us. Because that's how it works in the wizarding world. They definitely... Actually, I wonder how many wizards care about Muggle elections. Interesting. But she takes her niece and basically forces her to watch her torture Muggles who came within the area, and eventually Isolde decides to leave, and how she leaves is she eventually takes the wand of Slytherin and runs off to the UK, where she pretends to be a boy, heading towards the new world, towards New York, I guess, because in New York you can be a new man. And after she lands, she immediately wanders off into the wilderness to be left behind forever. And by that, everybody basically just forgets about her. Everyone does. And then she comes across a hide behind, which is a creature which is able to contort its body into different shapes, do hide behind stuff, and basically attacks humanoid creatures like goblins, humans. I don't know if centaurs would count. Those kinds of things. So those things are not safe, and she stumbles across one fighting a Pukwudgie? I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's basically a little goblin. So she saves the little goblin creature, or the Pukwudgie, or however you pronounce it. It's weirdly pronounced, I assume. Anyway, she saves it, takes it back to a place where she calls her home, heals it up, And the thing reluctantly agrees to basically be her friend until he can repay its debt, because just like the goblins in the UK, these things are not very fond of humans at all. They they poison humans and stuff like that. It's kind of nuts, but he does help because he genuinely feels that he's in her debt. So he's like, I will help you until we repay the debt, done to me. And for a while there, they stay together for a while, and he basically shows her how to survive and helps her identify all the magical creatures and non-magical creatures in the area, like a serpent, a horned serpent that lives in the water. And it's very confusing because she seems to be able to understand what it says, and it doesn't really attack her, even though the river serpents are known to be dangerous creatures. She seems to be safe. So grade A, I guess. She gets a grade A nature file. And for a while there, she goes around with little Puckwudgie until she finds two kids being attacked by the same hide behind that attacked this little goblin creature. By the way, I forgot to mention parents a drop, because you see, these parents were wizards and witches who had come to America for adventure and brought their kids along, because that's respectable parenting. Because if you want to go on an adventure, let's bring our prepubescent children along with us, right? That's how it works. Maybe it's a good thing they died. They probably would have gotten their kids killed anyway. So after James gets knocked unconscious by trying to use a wand, because he is not magical at all, he wakes up to find Isolde caring for him, healing him and stuff like that. And every day she apparently vows to wipe his memory and send him back out into the world after he's better, until eventually they get married and become sort of the adopted parents of Chadwick and Webster, the two children whom Isolde and William had found several days before. And that's, it's nuts. And by the way, I'm going to point out that William was named after Isolde's dead father. I feel like I should have put that at the beginning, but hey, better late than never, I guess. These are not scripted by any means. Anyway, and she, they get married, and she basically tells her children tales of Hogwarts, this grand school that she was never allowed to attend, but she heard so much about it, so she gave these secondhand stories down to her children, who wanted more than nothing but to go to Hogwarts, but she couldn't. So eventually she promised them that eventually she would teach them magic and, obtain wands for them. And this is one of my favorite parts of the story, because when they turn 11, she and James both go get some horns and stuff like that. Get horns from the river serpent, a bunch of wood, and she basically takes all these magical ingredients, hands them over to James, where he then forges those into a wand, which I find really fascinating, where the witch goes and obtains the magical items, and then it's the muggle, or as they're known as in America, no-mage, goes and makes the actual wand. And it's really fascinating. And eventually, two more children show up. Two twins show up. And eventually, it just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. More so than just a house where it's all homeschooled magic. Eventually, it grows into a small castle, which is when Gormlaith Gaunt, the aunt of Isolde, decides, wait a minute, this place sounds familiar. I've heard the term Ilvermorny before, I guess, because that's what they named the school. The school was called Ilvermorny. So Miss Gaunt decides to do the exact same thing, pretend to be a man, and travel up to the new world where she knows in New York you can be a new man. I need to stop making that reference here. It makes no sense because they don't go to New York at all. But anyway, eventually she tracks down her niece to Massachusetts and uses a wand that she had bought before she made the trip to go and basically try to kill her daughter, because she's like, my daughter married a muggle and has a squib child. That can't be allowed in the lineage of Slytherin, because again, only purebloods, because we have to make wizarding great again. So she does the only thing she can do, and that is go and try to kill her. And there's a really fascinating thing that happens, because apparently, since Isolde is using Slytherin's wand, you can literally issue it commands through Parseltongue, such as rendering it inert. Basically, Gaunt whispers a curse that puts her niece and James to sleep, and then speaks in Parseltongue, so that way Isolde's wand, which was Slytherin's wand, goes inert and it can't be used anymore, leading Chadwick and Webster to go and fight her off on their own, which is a bit more challenging than expected. It's still a 2-on-1 fight, but it's not easy by any sense of the word. And eventually they are pushed back into the house, where Isolde and James are woken up, where she then yells for William. So the little puckwudgie goblin creature poofs in and shoots Gaunt in the shoulder with a poisoned arrow, which is hilarious, and I would love to see this happen in an actual thing. So eventually William moves his family into the castle that they had built, and it's super interesting. And basically, little puckwudgies become the security of the school, which is really cool. Because, I don't know why it's cool, I just find it cool to have little goblin guards everywhere. Now, though, let's talk about one of my favorite parts, and that is the houses and the house sorting. Because you see, unlike Hogwarts, the houses, there are still 4 houses, but they are not named after the founders, because, well, apparently they thought that a house named Webster would not win any prizes or anything at all. So they came up with a different system, and this system I think is a heck of a lot better. They had the 4 founders, Isolde, James, Chadwick, and Webster, all pick their favorite animals and have those animals represent the 4 houses, and then when a new student would arrive, they would show up, they would stand in front of this corridor with a statue of each of the basically the animals or avatars of the house, that would then basically, if the animal which had sentience for some reason, the statue wanted this student in their house, they would basically acknowledge that student, and then if more than one happened, which was apparently once every decade, basically the student got to pick which house they wanted to be in if they were picked by multiple animals, which I find much better than let's throw a hat on you and see which one you're thrown into. It's more of a, you get some sort of level of choice in this, unlike Hogwarts. By the way, the houses were the Horned Serpent, the Wampus, which is apparently like a panther, which is nigh impossible to kill, and the Puckwudgie, and the Thunderbird. I definitely did not forget it was the Thunderbird, and they don't necessarily represent most of things. They represent abstract ideas, like adventures and stuff like that, but they don't really represent as much. But yeah, so this school grew and grew and grew. until the death of Isolde and James, where their statues were then placed out front of the castle. And it's really fascinating and really interesting. And apparently it goes on up to present and modern day, according to the article on Pottermore. My question is, though, why wasn't this school, why wasn't Ilvermorny part of any of the big wizarding events and anything? But yeah, anyway, super interesting. I might come back with a later video about why they weren't involved in any major events. But yeah, super cool history about a school in North America, something we never really get to see in the mainstream books and movies for Harry Potter. So yes, wizarding and witching does exist in North America. Yes, they have their own school. And yes, I personally would probably pick to go to Ilvermorny more than Hogwarts. Possibly, I don't know. Going to Hogwarts seems like it'd be just a dangerous idea. That school gets like invaded by monsters like every other Tuesday. You get like a week to study, and then in the middle of your test, you're attacked by, I don't know, a basilisk? So yeah, super interesting. They don't seem to have as much drama going on, because as far as we know, the only other attack was from the vengeful aunt of the headmistress. So apparently, according to this, no other attacks were really mentioned. Also, another cool thing is they did not really trust their students outside school. So basically, until you were 17, you were forced to leave your wand at the school. You could not take it with you back out into the real world during summers and breaks. So yeah, super interesting. Well, that's one video down. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Go check out the Infinity Podcast. The next episode should be out very soon, featuring Owen from Owen Likes Comics. It was a blast, so the audio quality is a bit low. Go check that out. Links in the description and everywhere else. Go check out the Pie Podcast that is live streamed on Thursdays over on twitch.tv/Pie Podcast, I think. I don't know. Anyway, check the channels tab up above here or over here, depending on which YouTube page you're on. And things should be on screen right now. Click all the things, do all of those, and hopefully I will see you all next time.